Welcome to the Expansive Astrology Podcast, where we look at using astrology beyond the tropes and horoscopes to tune into the natural forces around us and within us, honoring our true nature to craft our future. I'm your host, Melissa, the Self-Care Witch, and I'm here to help you meet your magic. Without further ado, let's begin this week's episode with a tarot reading for the collective. Hi. Whoa. Okay, love that. A card already jumped from my deck before I even said hello. Hi. Welcome back to the podcast. Episode 17. And this week is the last week of Virgo season. It's the last week that we're going to be talking about Virgo season. So the discussion today is all about managing perfectionism and imposter syndrome and fear of failure and those sorts of things that kind of can hold us back, or that might be common for Virgo or in Virgo, where the sacred analysis and attention to detail and high standards become less helpful. But first things first, collective tarot reading for the week. This is a soul check-in spread by Lindsay Mack, but applied to the collective. It's a 4-card spread. And we have 4 majors. We have 4 majors today. Wow. So I will try to keep it concise, but it's a lot of big energy. Sheesh. So, present for us, and the card that leapt from the deck the second I began shuffling, the second I started the podcast, the Star. And supporting that, we have the Magician. So, present for us, the Star supported by the Magician. This is, what a juicy combo. So, beginning with the Star is the card that comes directly after the Tower. That doesn't necessarily mean that you have just had a Tower moment, or that you need to have had a Tower moment in order for this to apply. But I say that because it helps to illustrate what the Star is here to do, what the Star does. The key phrase for this card that I always think of, that Soul Tarot says, is that the Star is the nervous system healer of the tarot. The Star meets us at ground zero. The Star is the energy that meets us at the wreckage of the Tower, because the function of the Tower card is for us to get to the foundation of the thing. Anytime I pull the Tower, that's exactly where my mind goes, is what foundationally needs to be addressed here? What on a foundational level do we need to tend to or adjust or whatever? Foundations. It's about foundations. So the Star meets us at that foundation, kind of after the wreckage. And the Star is what helps us figure out how to meet that space, what to do there. This card invites us to figure out how we meet ourselves, how to meet ourselves, how to support ourselves, or find support and nurturance in this new space, or in this way of being that we've been kind of feeling into or trying to feel into. The Star helps us to caretake ourselves, commit to healing and nurturing, and it's ruled by Aquarius, and the mission of Aquarius, the water bearer, is to heal the collective. So the Star helps us heal ourselves so that we can give back to the collective in a really big way. And that's illustrated in the Smith Rider-Waite deck by the being both like taking water from the like lake or pool of water and also returning it back to the earth. There's this like give and take. There's this divine connection. There's this sense of relationship with the earth, this give and this take. So present for us this week is an invitation for us to center in with, to welcome in nervous system healing, nervous system caretaking in a really organic way. And Mercury just went retrograde, right? So Mercury rules the lungs, the hands, the nervous system. And supporting the star is the Magician, which is ruled by Mercury. Like how relevant is that? Right? Like that's pretty amazing. It's a really important time for us to be doing that. Also, in my neck of the woods, the days are getting shorter, the weather's getting cooler. That can be a really hard transition for some. We're really supported in caretaking ourselves as all of this is unfolding. The Magician is a powerful reminder of our power, of our magic. The Magician is an invitation for us to open up and embrace your power. The Magician has us evaluating like how we use our resources, how we engage with what is available to us. The Magician, the alchemist, is the expert of turning something into something beautiful or something healing or something fun, something magical, right? So when I pull the Magician, it's always a reminder for me that wherever I am, whatever I have this innate ability to connect to something bigger than myself, to connect to magic, to connect to beauty, to connect to fun, to connect to healing, thinking of the star. How are you engaging with your resources? How are you embracing your power? Are you taking care of them? Are you taking care of your channel? Are you honoring your resources? Are you honoring your connection? Are you honoring your knowing? I always feel like the Magician only comes up if there's some sort of magic or empowerment available to us that we're not touching in with. It's like a gentle reminder, like, hey, you're more powerful than you're acting right now. And also thinking of Mercury retrograde, right? Mercury goes retrograde to help us reevaluate, reexamine, rethink, restore, renew. All those words come up around retrograde. And it can be chaotic, it can be painful. There's all these, kind of negative tropes about it. But the purpose is much deeper than like the annoyances or the difficulties that come with it, right? The purpose is for us to learn our power more, is for us to refine how we're showing up, is for us to like clear away what isn't working, open our channel, heal our channel, become more powerful, more open, more clear alchemists. Now, that's all present for us to engage with or surrender to or invite in. But the lesson this week is the Emperor. My husband and I had it wasn't even an argument. We just were kind of short with each other in a moment of passing. And it hurt my feelings. And I went to my deck and I was like, what do I need to know about what just happened? I was feeling so victimized. I was feeling so hurt, and it was very like, I'm right and he's wrong. Although we were both feeling victimized by the other. We were both short with the other. Like, it was very mutual. And I went to my deck and I was like, what is happening here? What do I need to see? What is the lesson of all of this? And I pulled the Emperor. And I was like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. The Emperor as the lesson brings those spicy opportunities for us to engage with our power, with our fire, with our voice, with our space in a way that is both assertive and powerful and empowered, and also kind and appropriate and honoring the other person's inner emperor as well. The Emperor as a lesson. I'm not saying that like we're all going to get into arguments and people are going to try to trample over us, or we might end up doing the trampling, whether intentionally or unintentionally. I'm not saying that is definitely going to happen, but considering that Mercury is retrograde, Mercury is the planet of communication, and that the Emperor came up as our lesson this week, I wouldn't be surprised. Don't say I didn't warn you. Again, like, I don't want you to enter the week being like, oh my, like defenses drawn, worried, or at the ready, like for battle. But do notice if your inner emperor is kind of feeling activated, or if you notice another person's inner emperor being activated, and if that is somehow taking away from you or harming you, see if you can approach that situation in a way that is healthy and helpful and proud, and that like you can be proud of, right? If somebody else's inner emperor is out of control, see if you can keep your inner emperor in control while still like meeting the truth of that. Like, it's not about letting yourself be trampled over or taken advantage of. But if somebody else is like using their fire in a way that is hurtful or harmful or just like out of proportion for the situation, don't meet that situation the same way, right? Take a spiritual or mental or metaphorical like time out, connect with your inner emperor and see how you can show up in the most empowered emperor that you can possibly muster. Again, I'm not saying that this week is going to be full of arguments and difficulties in that way, but if something does arise and you're feeling like your voice or your space or your birthright to just be human and exist, if those things feel threatened, like, reassure yourself that nobody can take that away from you. Like, you have a birthright to take up space. You have a birthright to use your voice. You have a birthright to be just a human. You have a birthright to be in and with the star and the magician in a really big way. You have the birthright to do whatever the fuck you want, really, as long as you're not hurting or harming anyone else. And if you feel like that is being threatened by somebody else, just know that nobody can take that away from you. Nobody can take away the fact that you are the emperor of your own world, and you are a magician, an alchemist. And I know that there are cases of abuse and instances where our power literally is taken from us because like evil exists in the world, right? And that's in some ways that's a way to define trauma or abuse, right? Is when someone else literally does take our power in some way or violates our power or our autonomy or our birthright to exist safely in our body. If something like that comes up over the week, or if those themes kind of arise over the week, make sure you're getting the support you need, right? Make sure you're doing the healing work that you need. I love the star coming up to like come back to helping us to heal, helping us to nurture and gently caretake, especially if something really difficult comes up with the Emperor in the lesson spot. And I keep saying, like, I'm not saying it's gonna be bad, but then all of these things keep coming out of my mouth that are kind of like, it feels almost like a warning. And that's just, I'm like not questioning it. Like, that's just like intuitively what's coming up for me. But it would be irresponsible and untrue if I said that every person listening to this week is going to have like their space or their voice or their something violated by somebody. I don't want you moving through the week expecting that, because it doesn't have to be that extreme. Having the Emperor show up as our lesson could simply be about like us learning how to use our voice. And that doesn't have to come in the form of a really spicy lesson. It could come in the form of a really mild, really gentle nudge. So I say all that, and yet I've spent like 10 minutes with this kind of like just an uneasy feeling having the Emperor in the lesson spot. So take what you need from that. And I'm going to say again, because it's really important that you don't expect something bad or negative or like extra fiery and spicy to come up, because it doesn't have to be that way. Moving on, whatever does come up, our anchor is the world. We've gotten the world recently in one of these spreads. I can't remember. But as an anchor, this card, no matter what unfolds over the week, having this card comes up is reminding us to, no matter what unfolds, to anchor in with our most authentic expression of ourselves. This card invites us to embrace a more authentic way of showing up, embracing a more organic, less egoic way of moving through the world. The world helps us center back in with our innate wholeness, center back in with feeling complete as we are, with feeling connected, with feeling ready. Like the world card coming up as our anchor. I want to encourage you to again and again and again, every time you think of it, recenter with like your higher self and your inner child alike. Recenter with your wholeness. Recenter with your divinity. I'm reading from the Tarot of Transcendence deck, which is a deck that I highly recommend, created by a local artist here in Fort Collins. It's a beautiful tarot card deck that's great for beginners because the imagery is inspired by like the classics, but it's so gentle and like it's very feminine, and also powerful, but it's really gentle. And anyway, I can rave about this deck for ages, and the creator of the Tarot of Transcendence, Jen Phippen, is a wonderful mentor of mine. I love her so much. The world card in her deck has like the shadow of a little girl balancing on a tightrope. And in the Smith Rider Waite deck, there's like the figure of like a grown adult who's like naked flying in the sky. And I like this take in the Tarot of Transcendence. I like the idea of the world being both that like transcended adult who's naked flying in the sky surrounded by angels, and also the idea of the world being a little child, an innocent little child. I think it's both of those things, So anchoring in with both of those things, both of those parts of you, your most organic, authentic, raw, sweet little self, and also your most enlightened, evolved self as well. Lots of powerful energy this week. I hope this tarot reading feels helpful for you as you navigate what might come up this week. And while we're here, before we move into the expansive astrology for the week, I just want to mention that all summer long, I've been doing these markets and festivals and parties and grand openings, and it's been so much fun and so powerful and magical, and I've been loving doing tarot readings at these different events. And as we're about to enter October, I just want to put it out there that I do have some availability on the weekends in my schedule, and I'll eventually add this to my website, but please consider me for any upcoming parties or celebrations, Halloween parties, anything of the sort. It has been so fun to have a tarot reader at these different parties and events. It really adds a little special something for the guest experience, and it's something I'm definitely interested in doing more of. So just throwing that out there. If you or someone you know might be interested in hiring me for a party or an event, you know where to find me. All that being said, let's go ahead and move into the expansive astrology for the week. We are talking about Virgo season and managing perfectionism, imposter syndrome, and fear of failure. One of the gifts that Virgo brings us is the gift of being detail-oriented and very careful and thorough, and having, just that like special eye for detail, kind of like a really beautiful high standards. And that actually reminds me of this phrase I heard recently. I think I saw it on Twitter. It was like, high standards save you from like low quality experiences or something like that. And I like that. And that feels very Virgo. Now, those are some of the strengths, right? That ability to be with what is, to criticize, to analyze, to pay attention to detail. That's medicinal, helpful, beautiful, divine, and perfect. And sometimes it can be really difficult and really hard and stifling, like this need for everything to be perfect and like this meticulous. There's a time and a place, time and place for that kind of perfectionism. And there's a big difference between striving to be our best and striving for perfection. So the work of this week is to shift from striving for perfection into striving for healthy achievement and growth. This will naturally help us to feel more secure and confident in ourselves, helping us to ease up on imposter syndrome. That confidence helps us feel capable. And confidence is built from feeling successful. And it's really hard to feel successful when you're striving for perfection, because perfection will never come. So my intention for the work of this week is for you to leave feeling much more secure and confident in who you are and what you're bringing to the table. So perfectionism can show up in all sorts of sneaky ways, from like being unwilling to perform a task unless you know you can do it well, which is like, this is why I'm bad at sports. Cause like I don't even want to try, or like if I try and I suck at it, I just get embarrassed and I don't even want to give myself a chance to get better, and that's, maybe sports just aren't my thing. And maybe they could be my thing if I would ease up a little bit. It's a sneaky sign of perfectionism. Focusing on the end product more, or rather than the experience or the process of the thing. If you're always looking for the outcome, That can be a big sign that maybe like perfectionism is at play, and maybe addressing the perfectionism might help you like sink into the experience or the process a little bit more, and like let go of focusing on only the end product of the thing. Also, being unwilling to end a project or call it complete, or putting off completing a thing, could be a sign of that perfectionism is operating there. How many incomplete projects do you have around? And there's a lot of reasons that happens. There's a lot of factors that could be at play there. But again, just consider the idea that maybe if maybe addressing some internalized perfectionism might help you to complete some of those projects with gusto and pride. So yeah, procrastination, it's a sign of perfectionism. Excessive preparation or like worry, overthinking, kind of excessive preparation for the thing, or taking an excessive amount of time to complete something, or like an unnecessary, not necessary. By excessive, I mean like unnecessary. I mean like out disproportionate. Like you're clearly kind of putting something off or stalling. It could be a sign of perfectionism. It could be a sign of like imposter syndrome when we do these things as well. Feeling just an overall sense that we are inadequate or flawed, right? Perfectionism is at play there. Imposter syndrome is at play there. And perfectionism and imposter syndrome has a really big impact on us in like all sorts of ways and how we show up to all sorts of like seemingly simple things. Those things are really impacted by these like internalized beliefs that we are incapable, or we're flawed, or we're not able to do it well enough. It needs to be better. We need to be better. It needs to be perfect. This can cause us to like chronically compare ourselves to others. It can cause us to feel jealous of others, or struggle to feel happy by other people's success, because we're like chronically comparing ourselves because we feel somehow flawed or inadequate. These internalized feelings can lead to avoidance altogether. A feeling of inadequacy or a need for perfection can cause us to totally avoid things that we need to do, or that would be helpful for us to do, or that we are actually totally capable of doing. And that happens in all sorts of ways. I used to dread the idea of walking into like a class late. That was like the most anxiety inducing thought that I like. The thought of walking into a class where everybody's already like, the lecture's already started, and it just feels like there's a spotlight on you, and the whole class gets quiet and everybody turns around to look at you, and the only seat left is in the very front in the center. Like just the idea of walking into class late, like I would rather miss it entirely. I would rather just not show up than walk in late. And that's rooted in this sense that I need to do everything perfectly, that I am flawed, that if I am late, not only is it like embarrassing, and I have this like fear that the room would go dark and silent, and there would be a spotlight on me, and everybody's eyes would be on me, and I would be so loud to walk it. Like, it's just that nightmare scenario, you know? Not only that embarrassment, but also just this deep rooted sense that comes with that I am a fuck up, and that I don't deserve to be here, and just this like very internalized need to be perfect. It doesn't leave any room for mistakes. It doesn't leave any room for me to walk into a class 5 minutes late for whatever reason. You know, it's okay to be late to a thing. And it's okay for other people to see you be late to a thing, you know? But this deep-rooted need to be perfect, this deep-rooted need to prove that I am worthy. And not only that, but the only way in my mind at the time to prove that I was worthy was to meet this impossibly high standard, this need to be completely perfect and never make a mistake, right? It's totally unreasonable. And totally for me to skip out on a class because I would rather not be seen being 5 minutes late is only hurting me, right? And keeping me from opportunities and keeping me from knowledge. So that avoidance, imposter syndrome, perfectionism, this deep need to appear perfect can lead to avoidance, which can result in all sorts of issues and unfair problems, undue problems, It's so unfair. It can cause us to be so excessively critical with ourselves. It can result in excessive people pleasing. It can manifest in constantly editing yourself or walking on eggshells or watering yourself down, obsessing over appearance, a deep sense of shame and unworthiness. These things are pervasive. It can be really fucking hard. And then I have people coming to me I don't know why I self-sabotage, Melissa. Why do I self-sabotage? It's so hard when we feel like we're stuck in a cycle of sabotage of why am I doing this to myself? I know better. I know how to do this. It feels like I'm fucking myself over. We sabotage ourselves when we're engaging in any behavior that creates a problem for yourself or interferes with your longer term goals. Self-sabotage is caused by beliefs and patterns that lead people to underestimate their potential, suppress their emotions, or detach from their emotions, or get really defensive and lash out on others. So kind of revisiting part of the theme of last week, inspired by Virgo, where we were really doing this sacred, gentle, yet thorough review of how we're showing up and what is in alignment and what is not, and how we can refine our routines, right? Which of your behaviors are not aligned with your long-term goals? Are those rooted in self-sabotage? Is that rooted in a sense or a need that you must be perfect, a sense that you are unworthy? So imposter syndrome is something that they talked about a lot when I was in grad school, when I was getting my master's in counseling, because it's very common, especially in people who are helpers or healers. Imposter syndrome was originally defined as an individual experience of self-perceived phoniness. And that definition can be expanded. A psychological pattern in which an individual doubts their accomplishments or talents and has a persistent internalized fear of being exposed as a fraud. Imposter syndrome is at play when we have narratives that attribute our success to luck or to somehow having deceived the system or tricked others into getting you where you are, feeling like you don't deserve what you have achieved. It's all imposter syndrome. If you lack an internal acknowledgement of your accomplishments, it's imposter syndrome. Studies show that more than 70% of adults will experience these feelings in their lifetime. Most of us struggle with this. Valerie Young, author of The Secret Thoughts of Successful Women, named 5 types of imposter syndrome sufferers. 1, the perfectionist, which we've discussed, to the superhero, which is like those people who push themselves to work harder and harder and harder, kind of glorifying the grind, comparing themselves to others, or the superhero can struggle with that chronic comparison, and they like don't allow any downtime for rest or for hobbies. It's just really glorifying the grind. The third one is the natural genius, who judges their competence based on ease, speed, and natural ability rather than effort. These imposter syndrome sufferers don't allow themselves a learning curve. They set the bar so impossibly high that it's impossible. Emphasis on impossible. It's impossible to meet that. This is what I was talking about when I was talking about my lack of natural genius for sports. The soloist refuses to ask for help out of fear of appearing incompetent or for whatever reason. And finally, the expert, who measures their competence based on what and how much they know or can do. Constantly seek different certifications, and yet they doubt their achievements. Constantly seeking knowledge and growth is one thing, but using it as a form of procrastination or constantly convincing yourself you don't know enough is another. This is kind of like the forever student, where again, like it's wonderful to always be learning and growing, to seek more knowledge and certifications and, whatever that looks like for you. And it's just as important to own the fact that you have those certifications and to bring that work and that knowledge out into the world. So, what do we do about it? How do we overcome imposter syndrome, perfectionism? I have a few tips. First of all, if this is coming up for you in any area, the first thing to do is to prove to yourself that you do belong right where you are. Literally answer that question. Who am I to be here? Who am I to have this? Or who am I to do this thing? Literally answer this question. List all of the ways that you are qualified. All of the things that you have done to get you where you are. All the ways that you've invested in yourself. All of the experiences you've been through and the books that you've read or the courses you've taken, the certifications you've earned. It depends on the situation, what this looks like. But literally list all of the ways that you are perfectly qualified to be where you are. Practice focusing on 1% upgrades rather than stressing for some sort of finish line or some sort of end goal. Zoom in a bit and see if you can align just 1% more closely with where you're headed or what your goal is. See if you can provide yourself just a 1% upgrade. Focusing on 1% at a time will help you realize that you are capable. Speaking of realizing you're capable, allow yourself to celebrate yourself. I know I say this often. It's because I truly believe in it. I know how powerful it is and how useful it is. When we allow ourselves to celebrate ourselves, it only reinforces the good work we're doing. Celebrate achievements and accomplishments and opportunities without doubting them or questioning them, or when good things come your way, rather than worrying that you somehow haven't earned it or that somehow it's going to go wrong. See if you can instead celebrate the good thing. Be where you are and just celebrate it. Trust that you have earned it, that it is true, and that you do deserve it, and that it is going to work out for you. And then when mistakes do happen or things do fall through and there is disappointment, learn to take those things, learn to take disappointments and mistakes in stride, knowing that they're a natural part of the process, and even experts make mistakes. And they don't define your value or your worth or your ability to show up. Mistakes and disappointments instead are lessons, opportunities, spicy opportunities to refine how we are showing up, to refine what we know, to refine what we'll stand for or what we will or won't do, refine our boundaries. Learn to take mistakes in stride and learn how to divorce mistakes from your sense of value or worthiness. In fact, divorce your self-worth from the work that you do and how productive you are altogether. You are worthy. You are valuable. You have worth outside of the work that you do and what you produce. Outside of the titles you hold or the certifications or degrees you've earned. You have worth, and you deserve to feel that worth, even if you were a worm. I would love you even if you were a worm. So I hope that's helpful. That's all for today. Goodbye. Just kidding. I have more. You can overcome imposter syndrome by learning to embrace how smart you are already, how adaptive you are, how clever, resourceful, and kind you are. Don't shy away from pride. Don't shy away from really embracing the traits that you know are your strengths. You know, don't shy away from embracing your accomplishments, no matter how small. Embrace how special and smart and clever and creative and funny and resourceful and wise and loving and kind and giving you are. And also embrace the fact that you're a work in progress, that you're not perfect, that you do make mistakes, and sometimes you hurt yourself and sometimes you hurt others, and you're just figuring out this wild life as you go the best that you can. Embrace your strengths and embrace your organic humanness. Embrace the fact that you're a work in progress. Practice messy action. That idea of embracing messy action, practicing messy action can really help to start to correct the need for perfection. It can start to help undo some of the stickiness around imposter syndrome. Allow yourself to be imperfect at a thing. Allow yourself to take messy action toward a thing. Allow yourself to not know all the answers. Allow yourself to not know where you're going. Allow yourself to not know the best way to do this or approach this, whatever this is. Allow yourself to do it messy. And allow yourself to ask for help. Allow yourself to read the instructions or Google or ask for advice on Reddit or Facebook or whatever the heck. Call your mom. Call your therapist. Ask for help. Allow yourself to ask for help. And my last tip to start to kind of overcome imposter syndrome is to accept and believe compliments. Don't reject them. Don't question them. Don't doubt them. Accept compliments and force yourself to swallow them. Force yourself to believe it. Take their word for it. I also just want to touch on fear of failure because it's another, like perfectionism, like imposter syndrome. It's like similar but different. It's another avenue that kind of hinders us, keeps us from moving forward toward our dreams. When we fear failure, like, okay, first I want you to define what failure means to you in this situation. And this is what I do with clients. If they come to me and they say they're scared of a thing, they're scared that it's going to fail, I have them really look at it. Like, what would that mean? What would have to happen in order for it to feel like a failure? Because often, like that word, that fear, that word, of course we don't want to fail. Of course we want something to be successful. But often we like kind of get stuck in this fear of failure when really what we mean is like, we're scared to make a mistake. We're scared for something to be hard. We're scared for something to hurt us. And that fear of failure can really hold us back from fully experiencing the thing. When realistically, you can handle a mistake, or you can handle a moment of imperfection or vulnerability. You can handle a conflict. You can handle a roadblock, right? But when we kind of get stuck in fear of failure, that's all we hear, right? That's kind of all that we can see, is these ways that it could fail, quote unquote fail. And when it feels that severe, when there's that much pressure on it, it's really hard to see that, oh, maybe what I mean by I'm afraid to fail is I'm afraid that this is gonna suck. And the thing can suck and also be really rewarding and necessary and useful and valuable, right? With all of these things, I'm just looking at ways that maybe things could be a little easier. And just to reemphasize, like when we are able to kind of approach this and undo some of the stickiness around it, it makes us it makes confidence much more accessible. And confidence is what I want you to have. Because when you're confident, you can show up in a more organic, authentic, heart-first way. And then we heal the planet. No pressure. But all of this is really important to keep an eye on, to stay intentional about, not to let these sneaky beliefs, this sneaky pressure of perfectionism, imposter syndrome, feel of failure, not to let those things hold us back, because that's what they do. So just a quick note on procrastination too. We procrastinate things that cause anxiety or distress. Even the things that we know will bring us happiness. If there's any sort of anxiety or distress involved, of course we're going to put it off. It's natural. So do a gentle little inventory. What are some things that you've been putting off? Make a list, the big things and the small things. What are some of the things that you've been putting off? And really look at that objectively, gently, non-judgmentally. What are you afraid of? What is it that you're afraid of that is causing you to put off sending the email or canceling the subscription or, whatever it is? What about it causes a sense of anxiety or distress? Even if you know that it will bring some sort of positivity into your life, where does fear or anxiety come in? What makes you feel ill-equipped to do the thing or hold the thing? Why are you playing it small? Do you think if your feelings of inadequacy, imposter syndrome, perfectionism, do you think if those things were a little more resolved, some of these things on your procrastination list might not be so procrastinatey? Mel Robbins emphasizes the importance of messy action in a TED Talk she did called How to Stop Screwing Yourself Over, which is very Mel Robbins. She shares that the numbers were crunched and the chances of each of us being born at the time we were born to the parents we were born to with the DNA structure we have is 1 in 400 trillion, which is unfathomable. Like that's crazy. We are marvelous, miraculous, unique, each of us. And Mel Robbins shares that we all have an inner snooze button that we hit when we have brilliant, marvelous, unique, life-changing ideas. She says we hit this inner snooze button and literally sleep on our potential. The force required to change the things that we've been doing on autopilot, and the force required to shift into truly honoring our marvelous, amazing brains and the ideas that we have all day, every day, that force is called activation energy. The activation energy required to get ourselves off of our asses, out of autopilot, and into the behaviors that are going to change our lives is significant. And it isn't always easy to tap into. We have to force ourselves to engage in the behaviors we know will change our lives. Literal force. It's the activation energy. We have to literally force it. We have to force ourselves out of autopilot. And every single time we do anything that's out of our normal routine, our brains pull the emergency brake on that change and try to sink us back into autopilot. This is why we get stuck in life. This is why it's so hard to change things, because even when we resist that inner snooze button and we engage with that force, we muster up the energy, the activation energy to force ourselves to do the thing. Then our brain has this emergency brake. After all that, we can still stop ourselves. And I love what Mel Robbins shares about that. She says that if we can hone in on that activation energy within 5 seconds of experiencing an impulse, we're less likely to pull the emergency brake. If we can marry an impulse with an action within 5 seconds of having the thought, it kind of prevents the brain from being able to pull the emergency brake and kill the idea. This is why I say act on an inkling. When an inspiration strikes, or when something sounds fun, when we desire to do the things we've been trying to get ourselves to do, when you have an inspiration hit or an intuitive hit or a desire come up, do it. Do it. Marry your ideas with an action immediately. Don't let those marvelous 1 in 400 trillion brain sparks die. Marry your impulses with some sort of action in the real world. Do it imperfectly. Do it fully. Do it confidently. That's your homework for this week. Now, this is our last week of Virgo season. The sun enters Libra on Thursday, the 22nd. So next week, we'll be exploring all that is Libra. And until then, you know how much I love the in-between seasons because I am such a freaking nerd for the way the zodiac builds on itself and how each season unfolds and builds on and prepares us for the next season. It's divine. It's amazing. So just kind of looking at the takeaways from Virgo season and how Virgo sets us up for Libra season. Virgo helps us evaluate the ways that we run from the present moment. It helps us to find center even when things are not centered. Virgo helps us make the most of what is. It helps us see the potential in what is. The two tarot cards associated with Virgo are the Hermit and the Magician. That combo, allowing us to be with what is and work with it to change it. Mutable Earth. Virgo season, Virgo energy helps us to find routine and refine that routine so that we're showing up in our full potential. Virgo helps us caretake ourselves and others. Helps us to be of service. Good stewards of the planet. And a big part of the medicine of Virgo is how we find refuge within ourselves. And this idea only gets stronger as Libra is the expert of the comfort zone. Libra medicine helps us find balance, embracing Venus, which brings beauty and pleasure. This is wonderful to add to our boring old routines. So taking what Virgo has brought us in terms of refining our routines, and we're going to be adding in beauty and pleasure and friendship and comfort. Libra helps us fly back into air energy, which is a nice opposition to the Hermit. Libra can be very outgoing and helps us to make connections with others. Libra helps us learn how to indulge ourselves without being overindulgent. Libra helps us work with and cope with injustice. It allows us to find intimacy without giving our love away too easily. All sorts of balance invitations, right? Balancing our very Virgo routines and standards with some pleasure and play and beauty. Balancing this refuge that we've found within with a rich and healthy and beautiful external life as well. Allowing ourselves to love and be loved while also holding very strict and firm boundaries. We'll go in depth into the invitations of Libra season next week, but I introduce it now so that you can work with the Virgo energy even more deeply, knowing what it's setting us up for. Now for this week's astrological forecast, I'm going to share with you some of the more major transits, as well as when the moon is void of course. All of these times are in Eastern Daylight Time, and you can find it printed in the show notes. Not a lot of new stuff going on this week. We're just still floating through a whole lot of retrogrades. And on that note, I am offering a special Mercury Retrograde tarot spread. It's not on my website, but shoot me an email or contact me and let me know if you would like a Mercury Retrograde tarot spread. It's a 6-card spread, $55. It's designed to help you make sense of what this Mercury retrograde is here to bring you and what your special invitations are, what your anchors are, what your lessons are. It's almost imperative for me personally, so highly recommend. Anyway, Tuesday the 13th today, the moon is void of course from 12:53 a.m. until it enters Taurus at 7:39 a.m. Thursday the 15th, the moon is void of course from 8:59 a.m. until it enters Gemini at 4:26 p.m. Saturday the 17th, the moon is void of course from 5:52 p.m., which is actually the same time that it's the half moon, the waning half moon, is exactly at 5:52 p.m. when it goes void of course. So that's really interesting. I personally don't always work with the half moons, but if you do, try to just stay open to what this might be revealing rather than trying to affect some sort of change. On Sunday the 18th, the moon enters Cancer at 3:59 a.m. And then next Tuesday the 20th, which is the date of our next episode, but I'll tell you now, the moon is void of course from 11:57 a.m. until it enters Leo at 4:38 p.m. Next week's episode, we're welcoming in Libra season. And remember, you're always invited to my Moon Meetups. Next meetup is Sunday the 25th in preparation for the new moon in Libra, which happens on Sunday the 25th. I can't wait for that one. You can find out more on my website. Also, if you hop over to my website, you will notice a brand new, in its infancy stages, membership option. It's called the Meet Your Magic monthly membership, where you can help support my work and support the podcast for $21 a month in exchange for unlimited moon meetups, as well as a monthly tarot spread directly to your email. Those are the main perks for now. Like I said, it's still in its infancy, but I also plan for my members to have access to discount codes when I come out with new courses or programs. I might eventually schedule a bonus live podcast episode every month, something like that. I've been tossing around the idea of making my Instagram close friends, kind of more of a members only place where I can kind of share behind the scenes type of things and some of my personal daily practice rituals. Really, the options are endless, but you can consider it kind of like the self-care witch inner circle, where for $21 a month, you will receive a soul check-in tarot reading in your inbox at the beginning of each month and unlimited access to moon meetups. I'm really excited about how this can grow and where it can go. Please let me know how it sounds to you. If you have any questions, if you have any bright ideas of things I can include in the membership, I'd love to hear from you. On that note, thank you so much for hearing my little pitch about that. I so appreciate you being here. I hope that this Virgo season wrap up feels really medicinal and helpful for you moving forward as we've finished the last half of the astrological year. I'm excited to enter into Libra season with you. Until then, take really good care of yourself. Let me know if I can support you in any way, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Now, before you go, let me keep your ear for just a moment. This week's episode is brought to you by www.theselfcarewitch.com, my bread and butter, where you can find more information on my current courses, offerings, and other fun ways to connect with myself and yourself. If you enjoyed this episode and you dig what I'm doing here, please subscribe to the podcast, rate it, and leave a review. It helps so much. And if you'd like to connect with me, head to theselfcarewitch.com. I'd truly love to hear from you. Until next time, take care.